Hello, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Tashoma Gensa. As usual, I come up with one of important system in human body that I provided it in clear and simple way. That is integumentary system. Welcome, be with me after the end. So in this integumentary system session, I'm going to look at some of important pointers. These pointers include introduction to integumentary system, the components, which are skin and appendages of a skin, and the function of the skin will be discussed in this session. Integumentary system, the word integument means it is simply coverage. So integumentary system means it includes a structure that cover our body, which is skin and it is derivatives. Within the skin, we have different glands, particularly sweat gland and sebaceous glands. We have hair and a nail. So we are going to look on these structures. A skin is the largest of all organs in our body, and if we check its weight approximately in average, it contributes around 16% of the total body weight. That is nearly 4 to 5 kg in average. That might not be the same in all person. And the thickness of the skin actually vary from one part of the body to other parts of the body. There are parts of our body where we're having a thick skin, like a sole of foot, and we have the palm of the hand contains thick skin, and we have areas where having the very thin skin, like a skin over the eyelids is very thin. And this skin forms a boundary between internal and external environment of our body. So what is important thing is that we'll discuss the different layers of the skin containing epidermis and dermis. So epidermis is the part of the skin which is undergoing continuous regeneration. So the skin is organ that constantly regenerate. And as I have said, it is formed from epidermis and dermis. Under the skin, we have a loose connective tissue attaching skin to underlying structures. So generally, epidermis is the outermost protective part of the skin, and which is formed from epithelial tissue. And beneath epidermis, we have dermis, which is composed of a connective tissue. As we know that epithelial tissue is avascular, so epidermis have no blood vessel supplying it. It gets its nutrient supply from diffusion of the capillaries beneath it within the dermis. And the derm is vascularized part of the skin. So let us look deep search to the epidermis of the skin. So as we know that epithelial tissue can be categorized into different types of epithelial tissue based upon the shape of the cell and based upon the layers of the cell, how they are arranged. So cells in some parts of our body, epithelial cells, are arranged in one layer, so we call them simple, and if they are arranged in multiple layers, we call them stratified. And if their shape is flat like, so we call them squamous. If they are cuboidal, we call them, if they are cube, we call them cuboidal. And if they are tall, and we call them columnar epithelial cells. So based upon these two criteria, that means based upon the layer of the cells and based upon the shape of the cell, we can divide epithelial tissue into different categories. So when we look at the epidermis of the skin, which is formed from epithelial tissue, it contains stratified cells, with the cells on the surface of the epidermis are their shape is flat, that is squamous. So we call them stratified squamous epithelium. And there is also a special kind of the protein which protects the skin, that is keratin. So epithelial tissue from which epidermis is formed, we call it stratified squamous keratinized epithelial tissue. Stratified squamous keratinized epithelial tissue. And when we look at the types of the cells within the epidermis, there are around 4 types of the cells that are arranged in 4 or 5 distinct cell layers. The cell types are 4 in number, and they are arranged in 4, but some parts of the skin where we are having a thicker skin, they are 5 layered. So let us look at those cells. The cells of epidermis are keratinocyte cells, melanocyte cells, Merkel cells, and Langerhans cells. Let us look at a detailed description on those cells. On the right side, what you see, this is the layers of epidermis. That means starting from here up, from the surface up to down dermis, up to here is the enlarged epidermis. So if you look at epidermis, the most of the cells, this yellow colored in the picture, so these cells that constitute almost all the cell components of epidermis are keratinocyte cells. Keratinocyte cells. So these keratinocyte cells are arranged in different layers. Look at the layer at the base. What do you see in here? Is nearly 1 layer. Second to it, we have a multiple layer of keratinocyte cells. In here, we call it the stratum spinosum. The base one is stratum basale, then stratum spinosum. Here we have stratum granulosum, and in the surface we have stratum corneum. But there might be stratum lucidum in the thick skins, that is optional. So what is a particular important nature of this keratinocyte cell is that the keratinocyte cells at the stratum basale in here, they are continuously dividing. They are undergoing mitotic division. So the dividing cells in here, they move up to the stratum spinosum, move up to stratum granulosum, and they are changing their shape and their contents. We will discuss detail of layers in our subsequent slides, but in here, keratinocyte cells, when they move up, they lost most of their cytoplasmic content and they replaced their protoplasma with the keratin protein, and the cells are going to be dyed starting from stratum granulosum up to the stratum corneum. So types of keratinocyte cells on the surface of the skin are dyed cells filled with keratin, and they are continuously sloughed out from the surface of the skin. The other kinds of the cell is melanocyte cell. As the name indicates, these are the cells producing a pigment melanin. Look at the melanocyte cells on the base of the epidermis. Here, these are melanocyte cells. So these melanocyte cells they are the cells with the processes, and the process is going as you see in here surrounding the keratinocyte cells. And the function of melanocyte cell is it produces melanin, and that melanin goes to the keratinocyte cells and cover the skin. So this melanin covering keratinocyte cells is important to provide the color of the skin. And another thing is it also shields the nucleus of keratinocyte from the UV ultraviolet sun ray. So it protects chemically the skin or keratinocyte cell from the ultraviolet light. The other one is, the other cell that we have in here is Merkel cell. Merkel cell. These Merkel cells are receptor cells. They are also found at the base, at the stratum basale. So in each Merkel cell, the base of the Merkel cell, we have nerve endings, as you see in here. This is sensory nerve endings. So sensory nerve ending plus the Merkel cell, we call it as a Merkel disc. And this Merkel disc is modified for its receptor to detect the stimuli, tactile sensation, pain sensation, and temperature sensation is detected by this cell, and this sense goes through the sensory nerve endings to the nerve and to the brain and the spinal cord. The other one is the fourth types of the cell, we call it Langerhans cell. Langerhans cell. So this Langerhans cell is found at the stratum spinosum layer, as you see in here. And this Langerhans cell, originally it is derived from the monocyte. So it is monocyte driven cell and permanently reside within the epidermis. As the monocyte is a component of white blood cell, this Langerhans cell also works to defend invasion of microorganisms into the skin. It is a part of our immune system. So these are four important cells in epidermis: keratinocyte cell, melanocyte cell, Merkel cell, and the Langerhans cell. Among them, keratinocyte cell is a principal cell forming the layer in the epidermis. So here you have a detailed description of all cells in the epidermis. Keratinocyte cells, they are principal cells that I have already discussed for you on the picture, and these cells are constantly produced from the cell mitosis on division on the deepest layer, which is stratum basale, and after the mitosis, those matured keratinocyte cells migrate upward through various layers of epidermis, and as keratinocyte cell migrates upward, they are producing keratin. And as the cell migrates, there are some of important changes that happen upon the keratinocyte cells. The surface, when they are migrating to the surface, their content become dominated by the protein called keratin. And the other thing is the cell is going to change the shape. It deformed to become flattened. That means they become squamous kind. At the base, they are cuboidal or columnar in shape, but when they move up to the surface, they become squamous kinds of the cells. And the cells, their cytoplasmic content disrupts, and the cells become dyed. So we are having a dyed keratinocyte cells over the surface of the epidermis. And then in every day, millions of keratinocyte cells are sloughed out, rubbed off from the surface of the skin. So approximately every month, our epidermis cells, especially keratinocyte cells, are replacing themselves. So that means the cell reproduction is high in here. The other is a melanocyte cell. As I have said, melanocyte cell is the cell producing specialized pigment, we call it melanin, and this melanin granules accumulate in superficial surface of the nucleus of keratinocyte cell, so it prevents the nucleus of keratinocyte from ultraviolet radiation that is coming from the skin. The other one is Langerhans cell. Almost I have said, these Langerhans cells they are monocyte-driven cells, and they serve as macrophages. They are macrophage cells that help us to activate our immune system. So these are the cells. The other one is the Merkel cell, and this Merkel cell on the base at the dermoepidermal junction that found at the basal layer, and along with nerve endings, we call it the Merkel disc, and they are important sensory nerve receptors for touch. The other one that we are going to look now is the layers of the epidermis. So I said at the beginning, epidermis is formed from the four layers in most of the skins, but some parts of the skin where the skin become a thick, like the palm of the hand, the sole of the foot, and around the fingertips, the skin is thick. So in this thick region of the skin, epidermis having 5 layers. So let us look at these 5 layers of the skins. The surface layer in here is stratum corneum. Next to stratum corneum, we have stratum lucidium, that we have it only on the thick skins. Next to the thick skin, stratum lucidium, we are having stratum granulosium. And next to stratum granulosium, deep to it, we have stratum spinosum. Deep to stratum spinosum, what we have is stratum basale. So let us look at the nature of the cells in each layer. So stratum basale is the deepest layer, as you have seen from the picture, and it contains the youngest cell, a single row containing the youngest cell. So these cells are mitotically active. They are continuously undergoing cell mitosis for the production of keratinocyte cells that are found at the other stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, all the stratum up. The keratinocyte cells are cells coming from this stratum basale. The next one is stratum spinosum. I'm going from deep to superficial. So this is stratum spinosum containing several layers, and we say that we are saying spinosum because it mainly in this layer that fiber-like or spinosum-like keratin is producing in this, so that this is the site, the layer at which the cells start to produce keratin fiber. That is why we call them the name spinosum. Spine-shaped keratin protein are producing in there. And we have also Langerhans cells, other than keratinocyte cells in this layer. The next to stratum spinosum, we have stratum granulosum. So the important events are happening in this stratum granulosum. They are also multiple layers. They may be from 2 to 5 cell layers. And then here, keratinocyte cells start to change their shape. They were cuboidal in shape. Now they are becoming spinosum. They are becoming they are becoming squamous in shape. They are becoming flattened. And the contents of the cell start to disintegrate. Cytoplasmic contents start to die. During this process, as the cell become flattened and the cell content disintegrate, there is large amount of lipid they released from the cell and they cover the surrounding of the cell. That means it occupies intracellular space outside the cell rather than being inside. So these lipids are important now. They are covering outer parts of the cells in the subsequent layers in lucidium, in corneum. The cell surrounding is covered by the lipid that is released at this cell layer. So this lipid is important to reduce the water loss from the surface of the skin. And the cell days, keratinocyte cell days, starts in this layer. The other layer is lucidium, stratum lucidium. That consists of say 3 to 5 layers. And then here, the cells are clear, flattened, they are dyed. This layer is, as I have said, is optional layer. It's found only in the thick skin, So the other last layer is stratum corneum. It contains cornified dyed cells. It is broad zone containing 20 to 30 cell layers, and it is thick layer. And it contains the large amount of keratin protein. Now cells are dyed, hard keratin is there, and this layer is modified for the protection of the skin from abrasion and from the penetration. And again, as I've said, there are lipids surrounding the skin, so the lipids surrounding the cell in this layer prevents the water loss from the surface of the epidermis. So let us come to the second layer, which is dermis. The first one is epidermis, this one is derm. As I have said that derm is formed from connective tissue, and the cell that we have within dermis are typically of connective tissue cells, like fibroblasts, macrophages, the mast cells, white blood cells are there. We said that epidermis is avascular and dermis is highly vascularized, even to support the blood supply nutrient provision to the avascular epidermis by the process of diffusion. And the derivatives of the skins like hair follicle, the oil and the sweat glands are derived from epidermis, but anatomically they are located within dermis. And for sake of description, even if we are not having a clear-cut demarcation between two layers, we are going to divide dermis into two layers, papillary layer and the reticular layer. So let us look at them from the picture. Look, this is epidermis of the skin. This is a cross-sectional picture of the skin. This small section is epidermis. The larger one is dermis in here. So this dermis, as you see, we have the blood vessels, venous arteries, we are having a capillaries, we are having a nerve endings, the nerves in here, we have the hair follicle, the root part of the hair follicle in here, we are having different kinds of the nerves in here. I will come up with the nerves, different kinds of nerves within the dermis by the other presentation. We have the glands. Look at the sebaceous glands that are opening to the hair follicles, and there we are also having the eccrine type of sweat glands. They are opening to the surface of the skin in here. So these all structures are within the dermis. So let me show you again these two layers. The papillary layer is the thin layer that is forming external part of the dermis, the surface part of the dermis. And this part, papillary layer of dermis, making an interdigitation junction with the epidermis. So attachment of dermis with epidermis not flat, rather there is upward protection from the papillary layer of dermis. We call them dermal papillae. So these dermal papillae interdigitate with the epidermis that forms what we call the fingerprint in there that is unique for everybody. Many papillae contains the capillary loops. There are the capillary loops on the papillae, and we have the nerve endings, free nerve endings. The other corpuscles, masonry corpuscle, for example, that are modified for the touch, is there in the dermal papillae. I'll show you from the picture. So look at this one. The outer part of the dermis, that this part of the derm is the papillary layer. And over the surface of the papillary layer, we have upward projections like this. Upward projections. These are what we call them dermal papillae. So these dermal papillae interdigitate with intent that coming from the epidermis. The epidermis. So epiderm and the derm interdigitate in here. In underside of the dermal papillae, we having a nerve endings. Look, masonry corpuscle in here. We are having capillaries in here. We have a capillary loop of the capillary in here. We have different kinds of structures over here. The next layer is the lower part that forms the lower part of dermis that constitutes the largest part, around 80% of the derm, is reticular papillae. Reticular papillae. So let us look at it. So as I've said, reticular papillae forms 80%. And the tissue in here is dense, irregular type of connective tissue. When I say dense, irregular connective tissue, this connective tissue contains fibers. We have elastic fiber, we have collagen fiber in there. And the fibers are not arranging regularly. As we know that dense connective tissue can be divided into regular and irregular. They can be regular and irregular. So when you say irregular, fibers are arranged in irregular manner, like this. The collagen and elastic fibers are arranged in irregular manner. And when we say regular, they are regularly arranged. So the type of connective tissue that we have in reticular layer is dense irregular connective tissue. So collagen fiber that we have in this layer is important for strength and the resilience of the skin. The skin is soft, but it is strong. And another important thing is we have elastin fiber again. If you stretch the surface of the skin, you not stretch it more than this, because of collagen fiber providing strength and resilience. And when you leave it after a stretch, it returns back to its original position soon. We have stretch recoil properties for the skin. That is due to elastin protein that provides stretch recoil properties for the skin. So from this topic that I have discussed for you up to now, let us look at some of the things related with the clinical point of view. One, what we call is dermal stretching. When our body increases in size, it might be when someone becomes fatty, like obese person, or during pregnancy around the abdominal region, derm gets stretched for a long period of time. So this long time stretching of derm might result into degeneration of some of the dermal fibers. So after the reducing the weight, it might be reducing the fat, or after delivery, during the pregnancy, the derm or the skin is going to have some markers. That markers, we call them stretch mark. This stretch mark, especially in the black people, they seen as a dark colored stretch mark. But for the white peoples, you might see a white stretch in there. So this stretch in pregnancy, we call it styria gravidarum in pregnancy. You can also have another kind of clinical point of things in here. As I have said, the attachment between the dermis and epiderm is by dermo-epidermal interdigitation. What attaches dermis with epiderm is we have a basement membrane attaching it. So this structure attaching the dermis with epiderm, if faces the temperature beyond its capacity, that means in case of, let us say, burn, the derm is going to be separated from epidermis. At that time, in this space between dermis and epidermis, fluid that is exuded coming from the cell is going to get accumulated in there. So that exuded accumulated between dermis and epidermis, we call it blister. So let us see it from the picture. See, this is stretch markers. We call it styria gravidarum in pregnancy. See this one. This is the fluid that accumulated between epidermis and dermis. It is due to damage at the basement membrane attaching epidermis with dermis. Dermoepidermal separation happened due to the burn, and fluid is going to accumulate in here. This fluid, we call it blister. So another lesson after these, they are not actually content of the skin like hypodermis and superficial fascia and appendage of the skin. I will come to you in another lesson. So thank you for having a time with you. Enjoy this presentation. Bye bye.